Most people think leadership starts when someone gives you authority. But what if leadership actually begins the moment you decide to remove obstacles that are holding you back? Today's guest believes great product leaders do more than create solutions. They eliminate blockers and unlock momentum. Welcome to the Glovisor Podcast, where we explore leadership, communication, business growth, and personal development through real conversations with leaders making an impact. Today, we're joined by a product strategy and AI transformation leader at Dell Technologies. She has spent more than a decade leading enterprise technology, digital transformation, and AI initiatives across organizations like Dell, EY, HCL Technologies, and Tata Group. She's passionate about helping organizations move from AI experimentation to scalable business impact, while also empowering more people to lead complex technology transformations with confidence. Today, we're diving into one of my favorite concepts, permission to lead. The idea that leadership doesn't begin with a title, it begins when you decide to remove obstacles and create alignment. Glovisor welcomes Shristi Pranjal.
Thank you so much, Joe, for having me here. Super excited for our conversation today.
You're welcome. Looking forward to it. All right, so Shristi, let's begin. For people meeting you for the very first time, how would you describe what you do today at Dell Technologies?
Today at Dell, I work as a product strategist, and one of the key portfolio that I handle is looking at the pricing and promo problem statements across people, process, and tool. I work very closely with the engineering team and help them define what are the key priorities that they should be looking at. So you can think of it something like I decide the map, whereas my engineering team is actually the driver and they take it to the next level.
I like that analogy. But take us back a bit. What originally attracted you to technology, strategy, and transformation work?
Yes, I mean, I never started with that intention that I want to be a product strategist. In fact, I started with a project engineer working in tech consulting in steel, metal, and mining industry, far away from IT consulting or consumer electronics. At that point in time, I was more interested into client interactions rather than just sitting in four walls of the office and evaluating, drawings. And I think leaders saw that intention in me that I really want to go out there, go to the project sites and see exactly how those projects are delivered. I really took a keen interest in client interactions, defining how the business gets acquired by our company. So that is the point when leader gave me an opportunity that why don't you work as a strategist and in business development? And that's when it all started. I experimented with some of the things and really kind of unearthed a blind spot that, yes, this is an area that I'm really interested in and I can really take my expertise to the next level. So it was a combination of technical acumen combined with business understanding. And that's where I discovered that, okay, I sit at an intersection of knowing the technology side of the things. At the same time, I have certain bent of mind for business, understanding the business. So that's where it all started, Joe.
Excellent. But was there an early career moment that when you realized that leadership was about more than just technical expertise?
Of course. I mean, there are plenty. If I just go back almost a decade, I was working with HCL at that point in time. And, we had this big problem statement. We had to set up an offshore development center for a client, which was in entertainment segment. So I was brought in as a program manager at that point in time. And we had a good pool of technical folks there. I mean, we had all the senior leaders who were supporting us. And then there was a delivery team, which was actually set up. They came with excellent technical expertise. But there was something that was missing, and that was actually the client trust. That's where I played a key role of connective tissue. That means I worked very closely with the client to establish that trust. I think that's when you would understand that technology and the technical understanding is not enough. With leadership, you can bring a lot more clarity. You can gain the confidence of your clients. And at the same time, help them understand that, hey, we got your back. We are going to deliver this. One of the key challenges which was there associated with this offshore development center was a typical timeline is like 90 days to setting up an offshore development centers, because there are multiple things which are happening together. You have got resources, you have got equipments, you have got people to onboard here. So there are multiple teams which are working there. And then we had this timeline of just 30 days. And it was a huge commitment. And it was our brand which was at risk if we do not deliver on that. And that's where I really tested myself and put my skin into the game and really delivered the project in time. And there was a slogan that was, very widely pronounced at that point in time in HCL, which was relationship beyond contract. And that's what we actually showed, that, hey, it is not just about doing something in just 30 days. It is also about the experience of the customers and the clients with whom we partnered. So I think leadership is not just about delivering what you have committed, but it's also about how you deliver that and what is a relationship that you can take forward.
I like that. So relationship beyond the contract?
Yes.
Is that the line? Well, talking about lines, one line from your LinkedIn post that really stood out to me is your role is your permission. What does that mean to you personally?
Oh, it has actually taken my career to a next level, I would say. We need to understand what it actually means. A lot of people believe that the permission to lead actually comes from your positional power. That means someone has to give you that badge of leadership. But it begins much before that. It is your preparation to take the next level. It is about how you really want to unlock and unblock the organization from the value that you want to deliver. So if there is something that is standing between the value that you want to deliver and there is a vision for the organization, I think it becomes your job to unblock it. And that's what I mean by your role is your permission. The very reason your role exists, that you can actually drive something to the other side of the finishing line. And we are caught up so much of, self-talk that, is this my area? I think we should just go ahead and lead.
Absolutely. So why do you think so many professionals are waiting for formal authority or permission before they can step up to solve some issues and problems?
Yes, I think there are two primary reasons. One that I just mentioned, that it is about they feeling that there would be someone who would come and hand them that flag that, hey, go ahead and lead. They are waiting for a formal title. I think that is one of the key reasons why people are not able to move things forward and, unblock certain things, because they are waiting for the right position or the title. They are confusing their personal power with positional power. So that's one of the points. The second point, I believe, and this is true for a lot of people, especially in the management middle, I think that has to do with your imposter syndrome, which means we feel that we're not capable at this point in time, or this is not my area, or would that look good? So a lot of self-talk goes in. And I think people need to manage their courage with their confidence and be very curious that what lies on the other side and put themselves out there. Those are the two things which I believe hold people back.
Oh, you talk about leaders being unblockers instead of being solutioners. Okay. Can you explain the difference between the two?
There are unblockers and then there are solutioners. So solutioners are those which have great technical expertise. They have great ideas, but they remain on paper. They remain in those Zoom screens and team screens, and they remain in that meeting room. But unblockers are the one who will carry that paper that, hey, we have a solution in place. Now, what it takes to actually go ahead and implement. I think a lot of people believe that your work will speak for itself, but that is not true. So those who are solutioner, they believe that they have solutioned something great and it will transition into reality, but that's not true. You need to actually have that mindset that now that we have a solution, what are the logical next steps that I need to take in order to make sure that it moves to the next level? In fact, that's where I would bring an important point of the decision paralysis. We try to over-perfect our solution and do not let this go to the next level so that we can actually try that, is it actually working or not? So those who are unblockers, they would like to experiment. They would believe in action. They would have an action bias. They would have an ownership bias. But those who are solutioners, no disregard to them, but they have great technical expertise, but they do not take it to the next level and believe that their technical, solution itself will speak for itself. So that's the difference, in my opinion.
Another thing that really stood out to me is that you mentioned playing both the Diplomat and the Bulldozer. How do you know when to build a consensus versus when to push through that resistance?
Yes, that depends on the stage that we are in. If I have to play the role of the diplomat, it would actually depend on where we are in this entire journey. So I'll give you a concept in product strategy and product management. It is like first, when we really want to discover our ideas, we just first diverge and then we converge, which means first we just list down all the new ideas that we have. And then we try to select the top 2 or top 3, and that's when we converge. I think that is the stage when I would use my diplomacy, and I would like to have multiple leaders actually align to 1 or 2 primary solutions, because it's very important at the early stages that you have a consensus and alignment. And this can also come up with a lot of conflicts, and conflicts needs to be entertained in the organization, because that's when you can have a democratic representation of every team. So that's when I play the role of a diplomat. Now, Bulldozer, again, I did mention about it. It is about when I see that something has been over discussed over time. There are some folks who are actually really willing to actually contribute and try to over perfect it. And there is a lot of cognitive overload, cognitive time spent on it. And that's where I have to say, hey, even if it's a great idea, it's a discussion for another day. Today, here is a scope log that we want to do, and we want to move to the next level. So that's where I play the role of the bulldozer, that, hey, I need to unblock this. Let's move forward.
Enough is enough. That's what So can you share a real world example where alignment became the deciding factor in success or failure?
Yeah, absolutely, Joel. I mean, when you're driving a big transformation, right? It's expected that there would be changes, but those changes needs to be accepted across the organization. There are several teams whenever you're actually redesigning a process, for example, it is bound to impact different teams. Even if the process itself is a perfect technical solution, you are using the best of the tools in the industry. But if it does not have the sign off of the user group, if it does not have the sign off of the leaders who are getting impacted by this process flow, I think that's where your best of the tools will fail. In fact, adoption is also one of the areas that I would like to highlight. Have the best of the tools, but if it's not adopted well by the users, it's going to fall flat. And that is a real life example, having a fantastic tool, but not being adopted. And that's where business alignment plays a significant role. Take that alignment, have that difficult conversation ahead of the time so that you are not ending with surprises when you're actually about to roll out your product.
Now we have a lot of younger listeners. So how can younger professionals start leading cross-functional change even when they don't manage a team yet?
Like I mentioned, leadership starts much before you assume that title. So you don't need any formal tag of leadership actually to get into those kind of role play. Few things that I try myself, I think that's what I would like to share with the youngsters. Number one, try to identify the lateral teams you are working with. There would certainly be some common problem statements across various lateral teams. So work on those, identify 1 or 2 problem statements. Do some research on that. Please take it forward with your manager. I'm pretty sure my manager was super supportive. Whenever I go ahead and project to him that, hey, here is a problem that I've identified, which is also shared across, different cross-functional teams, I think we should definitely be solving. So that's the first step. The second step is doing your research. I mean, anybody who can be successful in this needs to actually have a point of view. That means you should not always go with a problem statement. You should do your research, have a point of view, that what do you think about it? What is your recommendation? Lead with information whenever you are speaking to leaders. The third point is, every time if you get an opportunity to have some face time with leaders of the cross-functional teams, the lateral teams, please seize that opportunity. I do not miss it. Every time I hear about some of the leaders visiting, India sites, I try to get some FaceTime. And I do not make it all about myself. Even if I'm getting a 15-minute slot with them, here is what I do. I talk about what are the top two problems that keeping you awake. That actually gives you a good handle on whether you are looking at the right problem statements or not. Another point that I would like to highlight is to work on your network and influence and lateral leadership. Don't reach out to people only when you need their help. Please reach out to learn, to know more about them. And that is going to pay you big rewards later on. I think these are some of the few things that you can do and test it out yourself. Prepare yourself ahead of the time. If you're looking for a leadership position, if you really want to go to the next level, show those attributes today. And final thing that I would like to say, if you believe that work will speak for itself, it doesn't. Please seize opportunities where you can actually talk about your work, not from the point of view of bragging, but actually showing that what is the impact that you're bringing. If you tell your managers, if you take them into confidence that here are the 3 things that I have done today or I'm planning to do, that is going to instill more confidence in your manager that, hey, you're ready for the next level.
That's great advice. And one of the things that I find that is so important is networking. Businesses are predicated on networking. And I think people fail to do that. It's truly important to start making those connections and to develop and grow those relationships over time versus when I need you to connect me with someone or I need to ask for a favor. If you really want to have access to that, it's really building that relationship. So that's a really great point. But the other thing that just stood out to me that you just mentioned is share some of your successes and the things that you do, but without bragging. Let's just say that I'm working at a company and I've just identified something that possibly can be a great thing for my team. But there's always someone in the team who is the paper person, right? Who sort of takes the lead and also takes some of the credit. Can you give maybe a suggestion of how someone can amplify their message so that way they can be recognized as the person who brought the solution for their team?
Yes, I mean, it is a very common thing to hear from the youngsters that, yes, I was not given the due credit. Someone else has taken the credit. And how can I make sure that I'm counted? Here is what I do normally. Uh, but let me mention, like Dell is a great organization where we really appreciate each other. I mean, recognition is part and parcel of our culture. But just for everybody to listen through and try this out, I would suggest that don't hesitate to actually bring the attention. For example, in a meeting room, there could be one person who would like to take it all. That, hey, I'm the one doing everything. Very politely, but assertively, it is okay to mention, hey, would you also like to mention that I contributed on these 2 to 3 portions? That's one thing probably we can do. The second thing that everybody should definitely do is sending your manager a list of things that, hey, here is what I achieved this week, 2 to 3 important things. And here is what I'm looking at for the next week or whatever. Have your 30, 60, 90 days plan. Share it openly with your manager during your one-on-one. If you're missing on your one-on-one, I think it's not a great thing. Please be visible to the managers. Please be visible to those lateral leaders who are actually going to impact or would be a good source for your feedback. Set up your one-on-ones. Do communicate those ideas and own it. I think a lot of time it happens that we really want to hide because we feel that we're not confident enough. It's okay. You are experimenting with new things. Please put yourself out there and see what are the reactions that you get.
Great advice. So right now, every company is talking about AI. I mean, you can't go to any company and that's not a discussion. From your perspective, what separates organizations that are truly transforming from AI or they're just putting their toes into the water a little bit and experimenting?
I think 3 important things there. One thing is how your leadership is invested. Are they just actually investing it via money, or They are actually involved in it. So what is the level of commitment that you have in the leaders? That's the single most distinguishing factor, which means they would not just like to consume the status. They would like to understand, they would have the questions, they would like to see how this is developing. And again, I would like to emphasize how Dell is trying to implement that. I mean, we would see leaders not just trying to get a handle of what we are doing via status, but they really want to understand, okay, what are the top lines we can impact via it? How we are going to make this available to the customers faster. So that's one, the leadership commitment that is going to distinguish. The second one is your data readiness. In fact, today we have legacy systems and the data is fragmented. What most of the organization in terms of implementing AI does is they really want to patch AI with the flawed process. It can very well happen that you have an agent which can pull information from two different sources because you have a legacy system and relying on two different tools. I think that is going to be a single biggest differentiator, how exactly you are trying to move your legacy systems to a data which is actually decision ready and ready to consume AI. I think that's the second differentiator. The third one is going to be your AI fluency within the organization. I think with the advent of AI, one thing that has certainly happened that there is a natural fear in the employees that, okay, oh, this is going to take away my job. But nobody's looking at the brighter side of the things, how it is going to transform your work, how you're going to create more space for yourself because a lot of admin tasks have been taken over. So the more the employees adopt it, learn it, and be fluent in it, I think it is going to differentiate big time. In fact, I would like to add a fourth layer to it, and that is going to be governance. Your model is not your flex. Models are available today. But what are the outcomes that you're generating for your organization using those models, using those data? I think that is going to be the key differentiator. Is your outcome not biased? Are you taking care of the data drift? Is it actually delivering the outcomes which it was promised for? I think those would be the key differentiators, which is going to determine the success of an AI native organization, in my opinion, Joe.
So your fourth point brings up a big question is what role does trust play in a successful AI transformation?
I think it is the single biggest differentiator, trust. If you don't trust a system, you are less likely to adopt it. You can spend millions and billions onto the organization. Let me give you one data point. In fact, I was reading through some of the market research and I was surprised that 95% of AI pilot projects actually fail, which means they are not delivering the right value. And I think one of the key reasons is the governance. Meaning, your governance cannot be an afterthought. That means, okay, now that I have an outcome, is it compliant enough? I think it has to be inbuilt within the system itself. Whenever you're training the data, please have your risk assessed that what are the possible areas where my data can be biased. And there are significant examples that is there on website, open sources, which you can read about that how governance and the data bias can generate results that can be detrimental to gender, to a particular ethnic group, so on and so forth.
Sure. But how can leaders really balance the innovation with this responsibility that now they have to roll out as well? Because you can't just roll out this new AI process without the responsibility.
Absolutely, Joe. Glad that you brought this point. So, two things. I mean, there are plenty of things an organization can do. Let me focus on top two. Like I mentioned, it cannot be an afterthought. It has to be embedded. Governance has to be embedded at every layer, which means your outcomes, which is out there on production, on live, that is not the only thing to be monitored. When you're training your data, that's where it all starts. When you're conceptualizing, that's where it starts. So it has to be across the development life cycle that you have right monitoring, right evaluations at every layer, at every life cycle stages. That's one. The second thing as an organization is to actually take into account a lot of time we keep the focus only on the data that we are training on. But are we really seeing what outcomes it is achieving? Are we comparing that Is that the intended outcome that we wanted? A lot of time we miss on comparing the outcomes with what was intended. And I think that's how we can make sure that we are acting responsibly. There is a concept of AI governance body altogether, which can actually go ahead and keep a tab and review that. In fact, one of the points that I would add is to perform proper risk assessment and adhering to the policies and guidelines which are released across the globe. In fact, we have several legal and business compliance check, which has been established today across various regions, especially EU, which takes into account AI governance. And I think having a knowledge base of that, sensitizing the entire team about its importance, making it part and parcel of your culture and not just a technical check. I think those are some of the key things that we should be looking at when we truly want to be someone who is driving AI governance with responsibility.
So, how would you roll this out in an organization? Would this be a document followed by training for every employee to have a buy-in? Because obviously, if employees and leadership are not bought in, then it's going to break apart anyways. It doesn't ever come to work long term. So, how would you roll that out if you had the opportunity?
Yes, I mean, for AI governance, uh, of course, we have to start with the training itself that, hey, you have to ensure that the data that you have trained on, it is not biased. I can give you an example. When we train the models with the pricing or promo sensitive information, like what was the inventory, what was the URM target, it's most likely that there are some top 20 or 30% of the products would have been more on promotion or would have changed the price more often on our website. Now, if I train my system on that, it is going to actually adopt that. It is going to believe to that to be true that, hey, here are the top 20 products which needs to be priced more often and which needs to be put more on promo. So that is a data bias, right? So two things. I mean, definitely we have to train the entire organization at every level. That means if I'm a product manager, I have to ensure that I have the right evaluations in place. I have the right guardrails that, hey, I'm not going to accept a value if it is non-compliant. And there is zero tolerance for that. It should match 95% of the time. So what is the probability that you are ready to absorb? That threshold should really be high. You need to train your model. You have to set your hyperparameters and the temperatures in the right way. So you need to have those subject matter experts who can keep you truthful that how you're training your data. And if I have to roll that out, definitely that has to be part of your training all across the organization. It's not just one team looking at the compliance. It has to be across the product managers. It has to be across the developers. It has to be across the testers, everybody. Like I mentioned, proper risk assessment. I think what are the possible risks which are there? There has to be a risk framework that needs to be established within the organization. Which can help you identify, hey, here are the 4 risks or 5 risks or 5 risks against which I should always be evaluating my model. It should be like a mandate.
So now there are a lot of concerns when you're rolling
Mhm.
out AI. So what would you say that is the most concerning for organizations when they're approaching AI? And what do you think is the long-term ramifications of it?
Like I mentioned, definitely governance. It is a big risk. The second biggest risk which I see is AI whitewashing. I mean, I was in a conference last to last week, and there were few folks who approached me and said, hey, if I don't patch AI in this conversation, I don't get enough investor interest, or the client does not get interested, which means there is a mindset that somehow we have to put AI into the conversation, which is not the right approach. You need to identify, you need to redesign your entire process if you really want to implement the AI, if you really want to cover that journey from an AI pilot organization to someone which is AI native. You have to get your priorities right. You need to assess your maturity there. It cannot be a patchwork on your existing system. So that is again a big risk that I see and that worries me a bit. And like I mentioned, one of the data points, like 95% of the pilots fail because we feel that AI is to be undertaken, the implementation needs to be undertaken by a certain team. And hence, there is a certain level of excitement until a certain point, and then it gradually fades away when we see that it is not matching with the outcome that we expected. It needs the organization, the leadership to be systematically, continuously investing, understanding, reinventing with it. It cannot be a period of high excitement and then abandoning it. You need to be, invested into it thoroughly to actually realize the true benefit.
Now, on the flip side, what excites you the most about the future?
A lot of things, Joe. I mean, I'm super excited to see how my own role is evolving, right? From just writing the business requirements, deciding what and why, and now adopting AI, writing program specs, looking at the top projects, greenfield opportunities in my own organization. So that is one thing that definitely excites me. Uh, that what is the future and what are the few things that we can completely transform via the use of AI? That's one. The second thing that really excites me is now that a lot of administrative overhead is taken over by the AI. So that frees up a lot of space for strategy. So I'm able to actually contribute majority of my time onto this. The third part is experimenting across the teams, which means I have an idea today. I have the engineering team with whom I can actually work, socialize, and we all can try. We all are getting started with it. And that is a great thing. And that is a great place to be in where you have the leadership backup. You are experimenting and trying to see that how these projects or how these initiatives are going to affect the top line of the organization, how we are delivering better values faster. I think those are the things that really excites me.
Excellent. I want to continue some of these fun questions. What's one leadership trait that every product leader needs to have?
Hmm. I think it's not one. So two things. Number one, having that product vision. And second thing, having that curiosity to understand more about the customer pain points. The customer might not even know what is the product that they would need. It is your job as a product leader to understand the pain point and position a product which they never knew that existed. And that is going to actually be super useful to them.
A lot of good points today. But has there been a book, a podcast, a mentor that influenced you?
Book that I would mention by Marty Kagan, that is Transformed. That is a great book that talks about how big transformation feels and how we can get it right. I think every product leader should definitely read this. And like I mentioned, I mean, there are plenty of great leaders out there who you can learn from them.
If someone's listening today who feels stuck, waiting for permission to lead, what will you want them to remember?
Yes, I mean, just go for it. Don't overthink it. You are more than what you think you are. The time is today. Lead with confidence. And do remember that actions drive confidence and not the other way. So take that action, build that in your memory as a proof of your success, and that will drive confidence.
Great. Where can people contact you and continue this conversation?
So they can reach out to my LinkedIn, and at the same time, they can visit my website, shristipranjal.com.
Excellent. Shristi, this has been such a powerful conversation. I love the message that leadership isn't about waiting for authority. It's about creating alignment, removing obstacles, and helping people move forward. Thank you for joining us on the Glovisor Podcast.
Thank you so much, Joe. It was a great conversation.
Excellent. Thanks, everyone, for listening. If this episode inspired you, share it with someone who's ready to stop waiting for permission and start leading. And don't forget to follow the Glovisor Podcast for more conversations on leadership, communication, business growth, and personal development. Till the next time.